A pop star's cinematic event smashes expectations while a megastar's dramatic turn struggles, revealing a major shift in what audiences expect or want. Meanwhile, on the other side of the globe, film collaborations are forging the future of global cinema. We'll be delving into all these stories and more right here on the Film Mandate. My name is Papa Otu. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to the Film Mandate, where I bring to you movie news, reviews, and reactions, both from the African front and the global scene. And thanks for joining me for this live stream of an episode. And pardon me if you hear some noise in the background, it's as a result of heavy rainfalls happening at where I am. So pardon me also for a little bit delay in starting this program. And thanks so much for joining me for this particular event. So we'll be delving into the very first story, and just a recap. Taylor Swift, with her Midas touch, has done it again, smashing box office projections to a global sum of $44 million or so. Whereas, unfortunately, Dwayne Johnson's The Smashing Machine is struggling a little bit and has made an amount of $6 million. But we'll be delving into all these box office numbers and why perhaps that is the case at the moment. And also we'll be moving into our second story, where in Indonesia, the creative economy, which is an organization under the Ministry of Tourism, is lending its support to films from Indonesia that have been selected to participate in international film festivals, and also coming to the motherland of Africa. Global, film collaborations are being forged, particularly between Nigeria and Uganda, but with a continental scope of seeing where they can go with collaborations among member nations of the continent. So we'll be delving into all these stories and see where the future holds, in particular for Africa, and where cinema is going, clearly from what we are seeing on the box office, chart. So let's go straight into the very first story. And in the very first story, Taylor Swift has done it again, and it looks like she has the Midas touch when it comes to reigning, particularly in the box office, chart. And it's quite amazing to see that this is not her first time to rule the box office, particularly when her kind of videos that she is putting forward has not necessarily been a documentary. I mean, particularly with this one being the life of pardon me, I'm missing on the name, but with regards to this particular production that she's presenting, this is quite unique. It is not necessarily a documentary, neither is it really a cinematic coverage of what she's doing, but amazingly is doing so significantly well at the box office. And for those who may know, she's already done this before, particularly with her Era Store, which dominated the box office so much that it generated north of $200 million. And amazingly, it looks like she has the Midas touch. And this just spent 3 days at the cinemas and is already making this much. So it would particularly amazing to see what she can do with a month, or even extended beyond a month. And that is quite amazing to see. But this also points to the power of social capital, if I should put it that way. The power of social capital. And this is quite amazing what she's been able to do. That is not to say when you put it against Dwayne Johnson. Dwayne Johnson don't have the social capital, but it looks like there's something special about Taylor Swift in particular, and also what she's able to do, juggling her songs with her business acumen. Let's take a brief look at what was published in the Hollywood Reporter with regards to this very success. So Taylor Swift's Showgirl rocks box office with $33 million. That is the domestic North American box office, as against Dwayne Johnson's Smashing Machine opening to career worst of $6 million. So Showgirl pulled in huge numbers for an 89-minute cinematic experience that's neither a concept film nor a doc, but rather a smart promotional stunt for Swift's new album. Overseas, it took in $46 million, and that is quite amazing. So I read Taylor Swift's special Sweeties are abstract again. So Taylor Swift's special Life of a Showgirl album release event towered over the competition at the domestic box office, including films featuring two of the world's biggest stars, Dwayne Johnson and Leonardo DiCaprio, with an estimated weekend bounty of $33 million. Overseas, it earned a better than expected $13 million for a global haul of $46 million. That's a record breaking number for what's being described as a cinematic experience that's playing for only 3 days in cinemas. In other words, it's neither a concept pick nor a documentary, but rather a promotional event timed to the release of a new album, The Life of a Showgirl, which dropped Friday and is already setting sales records. The 89 minutes big screen event is a mix of music videos, behind the scenes footage, and a series of lyric videos for tracks on her new album. And it's bookended by the world premiere of a music video for Showgirl single, The Fate of Ophelia, which she directed. So that is quite an amazing feat that Taylor Swift has achieved in regards to this particular video of hers. And that is quite amazing because if you consider the fact that in the cinemas right now, with Leonardo DiCaprio's film, which has been in the cinemas for 2 weeks, and with Dwayne Johnson's movie he's starring in, the Smashing Machine, set to be perhaps a box office contender to be in the cinemas, and not just that, but I don't know whether his Midas touch of being, in quote, the box office Viagra, doesn't mean that one way or the other he's lost that touch. What is happening? And this is quite fascinating to see that two mega stars, Leonardo DiCaprio and Dwayne Johnson, it's not dominating the box office that previously they would have. I mean, when it comes to Dwayne Johnson, almost every film that he starred in, notably and understandably so, was a kind of a popcorn movie, but it drew so much audiences to the cinema to watch him. But seeing what is happening now, it looks like for this kind of dramatic movie that he wanted to really delve into, it looks like it's not pulling in the audiences as expected. And one may perhaps would want to argue on the fact that it could be that Taylor Swift's all the audiences, or Taylor Swift's cinematic, party listening party of her songs in the cinema is what is drawing audiences from Dwayne Johnson. But as amazingly, that is not the case at all, because Taylor Swift's audiences are tailored towards a lot of women, and maybe a few men as well, but mostly women. Whereas that of Dwayne Johnson's film, The Smashing Machine, actually is tailored more to the men who, and not just any men, but men who are actually deep into the, wrestling or the fighting kind of sporting event. So you would expect that regardless of that, none of these audiences will cannibalize any of their segment of demographics, and which actually it is not. But amazingly, it looks like Dwayne Johnson's film is not really endearing itself to a lot of the audiences that you would ordinarily expect for them to troop into the to the cinemas and watch it. I think maybe it may, with the word of mouth now, knowing that Dwayne Johnson's film, The Smashing Machine, is quite a good film to go and take a look at, particularly those who were fans of Mackay. It is possible that maybe come next week, if it doesn't, dip down in terms of the box office numbers, and particularly, the attendance of audiences in the cinemas, maybe it may have a longer leg and be able to make up for what it couldn't do in the opening weekend. So it is quite interesting. But let's come back to, Taylor Swift. I think that I mean, she is a pop icon, and for some reason, she has been able to endear herself to her audiences, and her audiences are quite the loyal fans to what she does in both her music and any other businesses that she's been able to do. And she's been able to set a record such that with her alone, her first in the theater was the had to do with the Era store, where majority of what the tour she went on was captured and put in the cinema, and it's quite amazing to see that a lot of her fans, and perhaps also capturing new audiences that like went into the cinemas and made it, I think, somewhere around $256 million, and that is quite amazing. And you would think that this is just a listening party, and it may not really pull in the audiences that you would thought, but she has done it again, proving that her business model for what she does actually does work. But it also then wants, it's also, makes me want to ask the question, does it mean that audiences today, if it happens, if whatever it is not really a popcorn, big blockbuster movie, audiences won't troop in to watch it? Or does it also prove the point that maybe the the cinema of yesterday has evolved to a point that perhaps filmmakers would have to rethink what kind of films they do? But I think there is perhaps more to it than that. I think when it comes to Taylor Swift, maybe she is a special case altogether, having such loyal fans who's who are very engrossed in her music. And not just that, but Taylor Swift herself is actually a filmmaker, an actress as well, even though it's not like she starred in a couple of movies, not necessarily as as for lack of a better expression, she's not really made it her main goal of a career to pursue, but she's dabbled into it, a couple of times. But amazingly, for this particular entry of hers, it is not it's not even cinematic, just as the article explained. It's not a documentary, neither is it like a cinematic covering of her shows or anything of that sort, but rather a collection of music videos that she's releasing on this particular album of hers, and the single that she'll be releasing too, and also a couple of behind the scenes stuff. So it is quite interesting that with this particular entry into the cinemas, it has still made even more money than the Dwayne Johnson possibly potential Oscar worthy film should have made. And it's quite funny because then it means that not only that, but with her film being, beating that of Dwayne Johnson's in the cinemas, it looks like not only is she dominating the musical world, but she's one way or the other beating filmmakers in their own turf in regards to, cinema screenings, and that is that's quite interesting. I'm wondering if her film stays longer in the cinemas, what's going to become of the box office? Is it still going to even shoot up even more? Because the Swifties are die-hard fans, very loyal fans of Taylor Swift, and that is quite amazing. But then, since none of the audiences are actually cannibalizing that of Dwayne Johnson, since both films are completely tailored to complete different audiences, you would then wonder what could have been the major issue with Dwayne Johnson's films, and maybe to even pivot a little better further to that of the Paul Thomas Anderson's film starring Leonardo DiCaprio. What could be the issue? Is it because these films are made with that indie touch and it is not really a film appealing to a wider audience? Or could it just be that people are not just interested in movies of this nature, So it is quite a challenge, when it comes to Oscar worthy, or Oscar potential films. More likely than not, it is not really a four quadrant film where you would find, it's not family friendly where you have a lot of people from different ages and different backgrounds going to the cinema to watch. So it is quite understandable that perhaps that is the reason why Dwayne Johnson's film didn't make, the usual amount of money his kind of films makes on an opening weekend. And notably so, there's a biopic, and this has to do with the UFC, you know, what do we call a former UFC champion in that field. And UFC, in as much as they have their audiences and a lot of people watch it, it is not really tailor made for different age groupings, and the bloody sport of that nature would not be everyone's cup of tea. So it is quite understandable. But then you would wonder that Dwayne Johnson will still be able to pull his clout of audience from the Fast franchise and other projects that he has been in. But for some reason, it's not panned out that way. So hopefully, maybe given time, as it will be in the cinemas for longer than usual, maybe it will rewrite its story differently than we know today. So it is quite interesting. But I think when it comes to Taylor Swift, she's been able to carve a niche for herself that maybe even other pop icons within her genre of music will not be able to replicate. And I think it is really much more about Taylor Swift than even the content she had put in the cinemas. And I think audiences that follow her carefully, and even with industry, industry people who follow her carefully, know that not only will she deliver in terms of good music, but also with regards to her production, it is indeed top notch, which actually entertains her audience much more than people would give her credit for. But I think now with this particular opening and dominating of the box office with her film, it does cement the fact that she is indeed a box office juggernaut. And in any time in the future, if she chooses to actually find a balance between what she does with her music and directing and fusing the two, that could actually point to quite some successful career ahead if she wants to pivot to not just being a music icon, but also a filmmaker, which she already is because she directed one of the music videos that is the Fate of Ophelia, which she directed. So it is quite an amazing feat she's already achieving this instant. And listen, who would doubt that she's not going to make enough money? Seeing what she did with the 2023's The Era Store, and the Era Store made her so much money. I'm sure people doubted whether would this thing work at all, but it did work so much that now I'm sure in her next album releases, a lot of cinema owners will be waiting eagerly to show her film in the cinemas. Bear in mind that this particular one only premiered in the AMC theaters, and I think when it has to do with international territories, I'm sure there was a mix of other cinemas to make that happen. So it is quite amazing to see what is happening because even the foreign territory, it brought in $13 million as against the $33 million for the North American box office. So I'm not even sure that the amount of cinemas that they were screened in more than or even equal to what's happened in the North American box office. I mean, North American market. So you can imagine if they have a wider release in the international markets, particularly Europe and maybe the Americas, it will be a massive, hit for her. And I'm sure maybe I won't be surprised that discussions are ongoing now to see whether they can extend the time to maybe another 3-day weekend and see how well it's going to perform. But regardless, it is really done well for her. And I'm sure now considerations will be given to a lot of musicians if perhaps they could have a similar Midas touch as what Taylor Swift have been able to achieve with this. But one of the things that is quite exciting to note is also the fact that soon enough, the questions perhaps filmmakers may be asking is that should we delve into the area of musicals and perhaps see whether we can write stories around what's it called musical icons like Taylor Swift, let her write her original songs and then you weave a story around it. Maybe that could be something to be considered where in the long term may actually be worth it for the cinemas, as the cinemas now are not really in the best shape possible. So it is something worth considering, seeing what is, seeing that, there are always quite some low box office turnouts compared to what happened in 2017, which received one of the highest box office returns ever. So it is something I'm sure studio heads are talking about and discussing to see whether they can cash in on the Taylor Swift market and see what they can do about it. Anyway, let me know what you think with regards to this, this domination of the box office box office returns by Taylor Swift with her, what's it called, the showgirl, kind of film that she has presented in the cinemas. Whatever your thoughts may be, kindly leave it in the comment section below. Yeah, and moving on from what is happening in the North American film industry, we move straight to the Indonesia film industry, where there is something wonderful happening, which for myself personally, I think more of this should be happening, maybe case in point, on the African continent. But I'm excited to see what is happening there, seeing that the government, particularly the Ministry of Tourism, with the organization being the creative economy, is lending support to films from Indonesians by Indonesians, which are participating in international films worldwide. And for that reason, they have lent their support to those films with the hope that they would be able to, make known the film industry proper to the world over. So a quick read from an article published in the Antara, Indonesian news agency. It reads that Creative Economy Ministry backs Indonesian films at global festivals. It reads that the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy is supporting Indonesian films in international festivals as part of efforts to position the creative economy subsector as a driving force for national economic growth. One of the key initiatives is the participation of the film Tegar, directed by Anggi Friska, at the Silk Road International Film Festival held in Fuzhou, China from September 22nd to 26th, 2025. The Ministry of Tourism, Minister of Tourism and Creative Economy, to Ku Refkai, pardon me, said that Tegar's participation in an international event is both a source of pride and clear proof that the film industry can become a new engine of economic growth. Through strengthening the creative ecosystem, Indonesian works not only entertain but also convey powerful messages to the world, he said. Tegar tells the story of a child with physical disabilities striving to gain access to education. Since its release in 2022, the film has been screened in 24 countries and has received multiple international awards, including the Best Young Actor Award at the 2024 China International Children's Film Festival. the Satagaya Award in Japan, the Golden Butterfly Award, and the Sifej Grand Grand Prix Award in Iran, and the Spirit of Fire Best Film in Russia. Director and producer emphasized that Tagar carries a universal message about equality and equal opportunities for all children. And that is quite an amazing story to have the government understand that the film industry is vital to building their economy as it's able to generate enough, not just finances, but film itself is a cultural export. And most of the times when a film does well on a global stage in such a scope as this, what it does is to bring much needed attention to the country of origin. And not just that, but it also then facilitates a lot of tourism where a lot of people who perhaps previously knew nothing about the country and perhaps the locations where the films were shot will now troop in to, have a visit of those sites. So even indirectly, after a film has already made its mark on a global stage, it keeps on generating money as people end up visiting the country of origin of that production. And I think that is quite amazing to see that films of this nature, it's receiving the needed attention from its government, realizing that it contributes to the GDP of the economy. So that is quite amazing. And I'm happy that the Creative Economy Ministry of Indonesia is supporting, providing official support, not just word of mouth, but official support for these films at the international festivals. And they have realized it from their own mouth. They have realized it being a crucial step for gaining global visibility and recognition. And that is something their minister cited in regards to how beneficial these films is being to their economy. And that is indeed amazing. And most often in certain parts of the world, let me link it to certain parts of the world, like what we sometimes find in, Africa, not to throw shade at what is happening, but over a long period of time, the film industry wasn't receiving the needed attention because it is felt as not being for maybe not being a serious industry of a sort to pay or worthy of the attention. But with time now evolving, most governments, even on the continent of Africa, has realized that no, this is indeed key to helping build the economies, because a lot of films, in as much as they may not have generated much box office returns, one way or the other, they get people talking about the country of origin. And if you look at films from Nigeria, Ghana, and other places, a lot of people in the diaspora watch them, and then the conversation actually spreads from people from Africa to other cultures as well, and it gets people talking. And this can be seen when a lot of stars from Africa travel abroad and they are hailed by other demographics that ordinarily you wouldn't have thought would have even known them in the first place. So governments of the day have realized that no, the power of cinema is really real. And not just that, but it has the potential of developing the economies, and they are doing so. And I'm excited that Indonesia it's showing this example that I believe other places who are not receiving such support from their governments are going to learn from, and maybe in the long term plan or strategize such that they would lend such similar support to their films. And that is quite amazing. And with this happening, it is something worth it to see and note that stakeholders from industries world over are taking a similar pattern with regards to this particular trend that is already happening in Indonesia. And this is what I'm talking about with regards to Nigeria collaborating with Uganda in one of the events they organized quite recently to see how best they can collaborate on the cinematic or the film front, and not just do productions, but they're also looking at extending it to countries from all over Africa to see how best they can bring in, the rest of the countries to participate in this dialogue. So in an article published in the Life website, we have Nigeria-Uganda movie stakeholders connect for African film development. So in a bid to foster collaboration and propel the growth of African cinema, Nigerian movie stars and their Ugandan counterparts are sparking a renewed synergy that will explore opportunities in film development. So let's take a quick read. So these are mega stars from both Nigeria and Uganda at the events that was held not too long ago. So it reads that in a bid to foster collaboration and propel the growth of African cinema, Nigerian movie stars and their Ugandan counterparts are sparking a renewed synergy that will explore opportunities in film development across, not just between the two countries, but across Africa. The conversion and the Icon Activate Uganda and Nigeria, co-creating the future of African film and television, aims to bridge the gap between the two cinematic powerhouses, unlocking new avenues for creativity, innovation, and cross-cultural exchange that will ensure and improve a good work relationship between the two countries. While the Nigerian film industry in Nollywood has a reported financial worth of approximately $6.4 billion, with projections aiming for an estimated $14.82 billion in revenue by end of 2025, the Ugandan film industry has a growing presence but faces significant challenges, particularly a lack of substantial financial investment and widespread piracy, which hinder its overall worth and growth. So this is quite interesting, and there's quite a good initiative being taken on this front to ensure that a number of these challenges that are faced by film industries on the continent are being mitigated. And I've always said and pioneered the idea of, not pioneered, I'm not the first, but I've always advocated for the idea that each country's film market is too small for them to make that needed, money, and most importantly, impact to help the industry growth. And that is why personally, I'm of the opinion that every one of the countries in Africa ought to actually unite. We need to, yes, carefully build our individual, country's film industry, but the goal should not be just building the country's film industry and that is it. But we should look at having a continental, properly integrated film market that favors the African film industry. And that must be done if you really want to capitalize on the $20 billion annual revenue that we want to generate. If we really want to capitalize on it, we cannot do it with a fragmented industry. And by fragmented industry, I mean even having industries in countries that are not working. And that is something we need to work on as soon as possible. We need to see how best we can form an association for the cinema owners in Africa, and see how best we can leverage on that by providing data to see how well we can invite investors to invest in that territory, and also moving on, see how best we can open our infrastructure to not just one continent, but let's see how best we can even use AU as a catapult in making this a reality. And that, I think, with Nigeria actually has done well in trying to lead the way in several fronts with regards to this. In the early 2000s, thereabouts, they partnered with a lot of Ghanaian filmmakers and production houses to do bilateral production films. And it worked for a brief period of time, but for some reason that I cannot even fathom or understand, it didn't work out well. And we had Jim Ike, one of Nigeria's veteran actor, talk about this when he came to Ghana to promote his film. And he spoke about how we should learn how to put away individual, yes, in as much as every individual have their reason of partnering with other, industry from other countries to do a production, the main aim should not even be what you're going to benefit personally from it, but we should look at the overall arcane goal, and that is establishing a film industry that we all can be proud of. And I think that is what this events organized by the Icon Activate, who actually happen to be the organizers of Icon Awards, it's trying to pioneer and do. And that is something I'm excited about. It is about time we look at having an African integrated film market more than thinking about having just uh, individual film markets, because individual film markets are too small and fragmented. And the fascinating or the sad aspect of it is that we don't have even enough cinemas to serve the little films that we produce in the country. And it's quite worrying. So if all the cinemas in Africa currently can even integrate where films shown in Ghana can circulate anywhere in Africa, and same from other parts of Ghana, Nigeria, and other parts of the continent, being Nigeria, Kenya, it will do us a lot of good. Synergy is needed if you really want to push the industry forward, and that cannot be done with us having fragmented, industries. Even within the countries where we are trying to help build our own film industries, it's already fragmented. So that points to the fact that no one country can be able to even help a filmmaker recoup their funds. I can tell you of a fact that I don't know when, I don't think it's even happening in Ghana where a filmmaker releases movies in the cinemas and made their money back entirely from the box office revenue generated for the cinema. It has never happened before. And that is something that these events that are being organized are really healthy to help make this a reality. Anyway, when you leave me to talk about this issue, I think I'm going to keep on ranting and there will never be an end to it. So let me know what you think about this event organized by Icon Activate. Do you think that is the right step to go? I think it is, and I think it's a step in the right direction. But whatever your thoughts may be, kindly leave it in the comments section below, and it will be very much appreciated. So today being a Monday, we just moved on from the weekend, and I'm sure you went into the cinema to watch something, or you heard of movies playing in the cinemas. Well, I'm not going to leave you go till I tell you how the films that screened over the weekend performed at the box office. So starting with the North American box office, let's delve into the numbers that these films generated. And definitely at number one is Taylor Swift, the official release party of A Showgirl, and it grossed $33 million. It's neither a film, neither is it a documentary, but just a chronicle of her, behind the scenes activities and, music lyrics and a number of music videos. And it dominated the box office against One Battle After Another, which released last week to number one, and it made $11,125,000 to a domestic North American total of $42,751,146. Number three, we have the Smashing Machine, which is releasing for the first time at the box office. That is one of the Safdie brothers with Emily Blunt and Dwayne Johnson, and it has made $6,171,000. And at number four, we have two, which dropped for number two, we have Gabby's Dollhouse, the movie, and it has made $5.2 million with a total of $21,609,390. At number five, dropping for number four, we have The Conjuring Last Rites, which has made $4,050,000 and the total domestic of $167,804,806. And number six, dropping from number three, is the anime that dominated the box office some time back. It is Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie Infinity Castle, and it has made $3.5 million and the total of $124,633,973. At number seven, we have the re-release of Avatar: The Way of Water, and it has made $3,194,000. And at number 8, dropping from number 5, we have The Strangers Chapter 2. It has made $2.8 million this weekend, and the total is $10,692,194. At number 9, opening for the very first time in the at the cinemas, is Good Boy, and it has made $2,253,000. And last but not the least, we have The Long Walk. Well, just talking about the top 10, we have The Long Walk dropping from number 7 to number 10. It has made $1,700,257, and the total domestic is $31,924,000. So this sums up the top 10 films of the North American box office. So moving on to the global box office, let's take a look at the top 10 films that has performed globally. And starting with the very first one, it looks like nothing has changed. Neza 2 still occupies the first position with $1.9 billion, $337,333. Number 2, Lilo and Stitch still remains at the same spot with $1,037,271,041. At number 3, we have Minecraft the movie, $957,849,195. And it looks like nothing has changed apart from Demon Slayer. So let me keep reading. Jurassic World Rebirth has made a total of $867,709,655. And Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie Infinity Castle, has made a total of $757 million. I mean, $633,973. And number 6, we have How to Train Your Dragon with $635,489,273. And number 7, we have F1 the movie with $627,927,111. And number 8, Superman has made $615,784,465. Number 9, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning has made $598,767,057. And last but not the least, on the top 10 is The Fantastic Four: First Steps with a total of $421,543,398. So the new entry into the top 10 of the worldwide box office of 2025 is Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba with the movie Infinity Castle with $775 million and more and counting. So that is quite exciting for the anime movie producers, and I'm sure this will, just as they said, they'll be spinning two more sequels with regards to this particular franchise. Well, also soon I've come to an end of this episode of the Film Mandate, and thanks for joining me for this particular episode. And I'll come your way again with another exciting stories from the global, film world, and we'll be talking more about it and some exciting stories actually coming tomorrow. So thanks for joining me, and I'll be coming your way again tomorrow, the same time at 11:45 p.m. GMT. My name is Papa Otu, and this has been the Film Mandate. I'll see you soon.